How to make $1,000,000 in just 10 minutes. This black man named Will show us a more feasible way. At this time, Will is watching a basketball game with his white girlfriend, Harley, on the VIP platform. During the break, Will, who is bored, decides to play a bet game with his girlfriend. He points to a sexy girl who is walking slowly and asks his girlfriend, "How many male viewers will look back when this beauty walks over?" "I guess only 3. But Harley thinks that at least 7 or more men will be attracted by the sexy girl. At this time, an Asian man named Hog, next to them, thinks that Will's game is very interesting. He took the initiative to join the game and gave 5 men a guess that they would turn around. The answer was soon revealed. There were a total of 8 men who turned around and looked at the sexy girl. In this way, Harley won this bet game and got a $10 bet. After the game ended, Hog's addiction was hooked. He took out $1,000 and proposed to play another game with Will. This time, he guessed which team on the court would break the rule first. As a result, Will easily won $1,000. Hog was obviously not convinced. He randomly raised the bet to $5,000 and asked for another game. This game is to bet on the next basketball player on the court. Is he running with the ball or passing the ball on the spot? For Hog's addiction, Will seemed a little hesitant. But in the end, he still accepted the bet. And in this game, he lost $5,000 to Hog. Will, who was depressed, was ready to leave. But he was immediately stopped by Hog, who was addicted to gambling. Hog raised the bet to $10,000. Will, who was forced to accept the bet, lost the game again. He was just playing a $10 game with his girlfriend. Unexpectedly, he lost $14,000 in the blink of an eye. Will did not believe that his luck would be so bad. He then took out $100,000 cash from his backpack and asked to play another game with Hog. Hog said yes. This time, Will lost again. The more he lost his mind. Harry, who was next to him, hurriedly persuaded him to stop. But at this time, Will had lost his mind. He put all the remaining $110,000 cash in his backpack on the table and let the waiter bring a poker card. He wanted to draw a card with Hog. The rich and capricious Hog saw Will's playful attitude. His mood was immediately boosted. He also poured out all the $1 million cash he carried with him. Then he drew a card. As a result, he drew a 5. When Hog thought he lost the bet, the unlucky Will drew a 3. Seeing that his boyfriend had lost all the cash he brought, Harry was dismayed. Will was also ready to leave. Hog, who had won the whole game, started to be sarcastic to the two of them. Will's competitive spirit was stimulated again. He showed Hog his bank deposits and asked to play the last game with him. The bet was Hog's $2 million cash. The content of the bet was that Hog would choose one of the 22 players on the court and let Harry, Will's girlfriend, guess. If Harry guessed right, Will would win. If Harry didn't guess right, Hog would win. Because Will thought his girlfriend's luck today would be much better than his. Hog felt that Will might have lost his mind, so he proposed this bet with almost no chance of winning. But the other party took the initiative to give money. He had no reason to refuse. But Harry, who was on the other side, was discouraged by his boyfriend's move. Will comforted his girlfriend not to give up. He firmly believed that he would win this game. Then, Hog took out his binoculars and observed the players on the court. He quickly chose a target in his mind. Then, Harry took out his binoculars and began to look at the players on the court. Then, a familiar face caught his attention. It was the player number 55 on the court. The other party was disguised as Will's best friend, Fibbo. At this moment, Harry seemed to understand something. He read out Fibbo's number. Hog was surprised. Obviously, Harry guessed the player he chose. Although he didn't know how Harry did it, Hog was willing to bet and didn't want to lose. He was willing to give more than $2 million. He just didn't know that the gambling game between him and Will was a trick designed by Will. It turned out that Will and Fibbo on the court were all members of the same criminal gang. This gang was born from theft and fraud. Hog was a fat sheep targeted by them. The other party was a gambler. He liked to gamble in everything. Therefore, Will deliberately played a gambling game with Harry in front of him. Harry was not Will's girlfriend, but an intern in the gang. He didn't know that Will was lying to Hogg. So, the performance of the whole game was smooth and natural. He succeeded in deceiving Hogg. When he left the court and returned to the car, Harry couldn't help but be curious. He asked Will how he knew that Hogg chose Fibbo, who was disguised as number 55. Will explained that he had long been in Hogg's mind when he was in the hotel. From this morning, Hogg had been accidentally in contact with the number 55. For example, he stayed in the elevator advertisement in the hotel, the number pin on the door handle, the sign on the street, etc. Everywhere Hogg passed by, Will used various means to point to the number 55 in these places. When Hogg was on his way from the hotel to the court, Will also made an encounter between him and Fibbo in advance. In general, in a group of strangers, people will always notice their familiar faces. In this way, under Will's careful guidance, Hogg fell into the trap inadvertently, and chose Fibbo, who was disguised as No. 55. After hearing Will's deception, Harry admired him so much that he couldn't help but give him a kiss. After being kissed, Will's face was wrinkled. He took out some of the 2 million cash he had just cheated and threw it to Harry. Harry said that he couldn't pass the internship test and couldn't join the team. He hurriedly took the money and left. After saying that, Will left with the rest of the money without turning back. Harry was stunned. He didn't know why Will suddenly turned his face. His encounter with Will began a month ago. At that time, Harry was a newbie actress. He was staring at Will, who was drinking alone at a restaurant. Under Harry's deliberate seduction, Will took him to the hotel and opened the room. Who knew that before they had time to have a deep conversation, a man who claimed to be Harry's husband broke into the room with a gun and shot them on the bed. Will, who has seen a lot of things, easily exposed Harry and the man with the gun. Harry realized that he had met an expert, so he chased Will to ask for a master's degree. In order to show his sincerity, Harry also revealed his identity to Will. He was an orphan since he was a child. After growing up, he was called a thief. Later, he became a fraud. Now he is just a rookie. A few times someone pointed at him. Will reluctantly refused Harry's master's request, but for the sake of his beauty, he still taught him a great trick. Will first took off his scarf and asked Harry to help him. The moment Harry took off his scarf, Will easily took off the ring on his hand. Then, taking the opportunity to return the ring, Will took Harry's phone again. Harry just got his phone back and found that his backpack ran into Will's hand. Will told Harry no matter it's a theft or a fraud, the key point is to make a focus for the target. When the eye of the target is attracted by the focus, it will automatically ignore and forget other details. Harry was convinced by Will's theory and insisted on worshipping it as a master. Will couldn't stand his stubbornness and only agreed to give him a chance to intern. But even if it's an internship, it also needs to pass the exam. The next day, Will asked some of his accomplices to take Harry to a crowded street. Harry pretended to ask a pedestrian, according to Will's previous demonstration. In fact, it was to cover his accomplices to steal his camera. After that, Harry pretended to bump into another pedestrian and took the opportunity to apologize to him. The second accomplice has successfully removed the backpack of the pedestrian. Looking at this scene, Will thought Harry was a thief and let him be an intern and brought him back to his nest. Harry found that there were more than 30 members and the hunting business was quite extensive. In addition to the common street theft, gambling, credit cards, etc., they occasionally carefully planned some high-end scams. For example, Harry's previous trick was a low-end scam that had long been eliminated by Will. In the following month, Harry not only quickly integrated into the team, but also fell in love with Will, who was talented in getting along with him day and night. Will was also reluctant to leave him and introduced him as a partner. But after scamming Hogg, Harry excitedly gave Will a kiss, but Will decided to separate from him. Harry did not understand the reason, but Will knew it very well. He felt that he had fallen in love with Harry, and the worst thing to do in their business is to get involved in love affairs. Will did not know how to face Harry in the future and was also worried that the two would be against each other and affect the development of the team and the business. So he simply swept Harry out of the house and kicked him out of the team. Time went by for 3 years. Ever since Harry left, Will's mood and business have fallen into a long low. On this day, a team owner named Gary found Will for no reason and asked him to perform a big show. Turned out that Gary's team spent a lot of money to develop a software that can accurately analyze the training data of the drivers and thus improve the winning rate of the race. The boss of the other team wanted to get this software after learning the situation. Gary hoped that Will could pretend to be an engineer who developed software and then deliberately create conflicts with him in public. In this way, Gary's biggest competitor, Harry, would definitely take this opportunity to win Will over. At that time, Will took the opportunity to sell the pirated software that provided wrong data to Gary. This not only cheated Gary a lot of money, but also misled Gary's team to lose in the game. For Gary, it was a win-win situation. After the show, all the money that Gary promised to pay for the software belonged to Will. Will, who had not done a big business for a long time, agreed to Gary's commission without thinking about it. That night, Will joined a car race according to Gary's plan and deliberately drank a lot of wine and was about to have a conflict with his family in front of the old man and the audience. Before Will had time to drink, he suddenly saw Harry, who had not seen him for a long time, wearing a red dress and walking to his house. The two were very intimate, and it seemed that they were still a couple. This scene made Will upset and made him realize that he still loved Harry. So he took the opportunity to call Harry aside to explain why he kicked him out of the team, but Harry said coldly that it didn't matter if he didn't want to hear it. Now he has become a girlfriend of Gary. So he hopes that Will not disturb his beautiful life and will not promote his previous cheating experiences everywhere. Will heard this and was very upset. Finally, he took the opportunity to really beat Gary. The old man next to him found Will after the show and offered to pay $3 million to buy the software developed by Will. Will naturally agreed to this deal without hesitation. On the eve of the official deal, Will found Harry again and tried to save his heart. But Harry still did not do anything. Without a choice, Will had to let his good brother Fripp as a guest and gave a precious gem necklace to Harry. This necklace was a stolen item from Harry 3 years ago. Harry wanted to keep it for himself, but Will canceled his idea to avoid exposing the crime. But Harry kept the necklace so that Harry was moved. That night, Harry came to Will's place and spent a good night. The next morning, 2 people in a dream were woken up by a doorbell. The man's name is Mr. White. He is Gary's new housekeeper. Mr. White came to give Will the software prepared by Gary and told him to finish the deal with the old man as soon as possible. Fortunately, Harry turned from the balcony to the next room to avoid Mr. White finding out his relationship with Will. After Mr. White left, Will did not tell Harry about the deal with Gary in case. He only said that he had something important to do and said goodbye to Harry at night. The so-called important thing is to sell pirated software. But Will did not only trade with the old man, but also sold the software to 9 team bosses, including the old man. Under Will's care, every team boss thought he was the only buyer. In this way, Will successfully received $27 million in sales that night. He took the money to Harry and was ready to take him away. Unexpectedly, the 2 people were stopped by the housekeeper as soon as they got into the car. Then they were tied up in front of the house. It turned out that what Will sold to the team boss was not a pirated software, but a genuine software developed by the team at home. Because of this, the 9 buyers paid $3 million to each other. Before Gary died, he had already set up a spy in other teams. That's how he learned the truth. But he still couldn't figure out how Will got the genuine software. This software was stored at home in his laptop. The computer was always in his room and was encrypted at a high level. In theory, Will could hardly decrypt the computer password and steal the software. At this time, Gary threatened Harry's life and forced Will to tell the truth. Will had to admit that he used Harry to steal the software. He inserted a microchip in the gem necklace he gave to Harry. As long as Harry entered Gary's room, the password program would automatically enter and decrypt Gary's computer and steal the software from it. After that, Will repeatedly emphasized that Harry knew nothing about it and hoped that Gary would not embarrass him. Unexpectedly, Gary did not believe Will at all. The reason is very simple. His relationship with Harry is still in a state of ambiguity. The two have never had a close contact. Harry has never entered Gary's room. Harry had no choice but to confess that he was close to Gary and just wanted to steal his expensive watch. Unfortunately, he never found a chance to do it, and he lied that he was in a relationship with Gary just to make Will jealous. After hearing Harry's words, Will was surprised and happy, and his brain was rapidly running. He wanted to make up another story to escape. But at this time, the new housekeeper, Gary, couldn't stand Will's silence and shot him directly. Gary, who was shot down, soon lost his temper. He did not expect that Gary would shoot Will on his own. In a panic, Gary was also shocked. He let Gary stay alone to clean up the mess and ran away with the bodyguard. When Harry saw Will was killed on the spot, he was terrified and sad. Unexpectedly, Gary took out the acupuncture and performed an emergency treatment on Will. After a while, Will woke up. It turned out that Gary was the mole who stole the software at home and also Will's foster father. In fact, all Will's tricks were learned from Gary. And Gary was a fat sheep that the father and son mistook. For this reason, Gary had lurked by Gary's side 3 years ago and won the trust of the other party. But what made Gary and Will not expect was that Gary soon found out and shot Will. Will, who escaped, decided to take advantage of this chance to get out of Jianghu. He gave all the $27 million he had to his foster father. He changed his ways and built a family with Harry, and started a normal life. The story of this episode comes from the 2015 Hollywood high-intensity crime film, Focus. It is said that it has explained a lot of movies about this kind of magic films, such as The Housemaid, Cat Game, Bank Robbery, Genius Ripley, etc. Focus is a relatively mediocre one. However, the atmosphere of the film is relatively relaxed, and it is very suitable for daily entertainment. Okay, that's it for today. If you like suspense crimes and horror movies, don't forget to like and follow. Thank you for watching. See you next time.